Hey guys, what is up? Big Reviews here, back again with another video. Today we're going to be talking about... I've never talked about Invincible on this channel, which is a shock because I am a huge Invincible fan. I've actually have the comics right here I've read. I've watched the show since it came out, and it's really peak. And I'm shocked I never talked about it. I always wanted to make a video. Season 3 just ended about a week ago, and I wanted to talk about it because the finale is one of the best episodes of anything I've seen in recent times. It is currently one of the highest rated episodes of any TV show ever on IMDb with a 9.9. As you know, the only episode to ever have a 10.0, and I use every excuse I can to glaze it, is Season 5, Episode 14, Ozymandias of Breaking Bad. This was tied with that for like the first hour, and then it dropped to a 9.9, but this episode's peak. Also, quickly, this poster right here is for a future video. As you can guess, the timeline, Marvel timeline. I did my Star Wars one. I haven't done that in about 5 years, so I figured I'd redo it since we've had a lot of stuff for Marvel come out. That should be coming up soon. That's a big video I have to edit. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to talk about the whole show in this video. If you're new to the channel or if you've been watching me, you know my videos quickly just spiral. It's one of these things where I just really use it to yap about the subject and I can go off, but I'm mainly going to talk about this season, but I do want to talk about what makes Invincible so great. The thing I will say, and I know a lot of people mention it nowadays, is the animation can be a little mid sometimes, and I just never really get that mad about it because I know they have a strict budget, and if you want really good animation, you can't have a season a year and really good animation. I mean, look at AOT. There was years in between. I mean, they milked the final season of AOT just for the animation, right? So it's either you wait a few years. I'm the type where if I can get 1 or 2 really good animated episodes out of the season, I don't care if I have to see Immortal flying away as PNG not moving, right? And they did that with season 3, which is where the final 2 episodes, especially the finale versus Conquest, was really good animation. I will be talking about some spoilers, so if you haven't seen Invincible, just click off. This is the second video in a row where I'm just straight up saying I'm talking about spoilers the whole time. This show is really gripping. The voice cast is amazing, especially the main 3, which is Nolan, Mark, and Debbie. We'll get to that in a second as well. The story is great too. It grips you right at the beginning. It has one of the most WTF cliffhangers on a pilot I've ever seen. And as you know, like, pilots are really important. I mean, we had the Breaking Bad pilot where you first see the pants flying through the sky. We had the Walking Dead pilot where he has to shoot the little girl. You know, the pilot's one of the most important things in a show. And with Invincible, the thing that really hooks you is right at the end. And I just remember it was sending shocks through everyone online. And because a lot of people, it's kind of like with Invincible, a lot of people knew the comic, but most of the people really don't. And that's a great thing, especially with that twist. So if you don't know, like I said, we're talking about spoilers. Nolan is like a bad guy at first. And Nolan is Mark's dad. And basically, this is a world of superheroes, right? Right off the bat, in episode 1, we see a ripoff of the Justice League. And you see Nolan's a part of them. And Nolan's obviously really strong. And then basically at the end of the episode, you see him kill the Guardians of the Globe, and that's basically the catalyst for the whole show. When I first saw that, I was truly flabbergasted. I mean, they handled that so well. There's no music, it's what the fuck, and just that whole first season build-up of like Mark finding out and Debbie finding out was truly something special. The thing that this show excels at, and the thing that I love about the show, is just the little human moments. First off, Debbie, MVP of the whole saga. I've read the comics. She is the reason all of this shit happens, right? Because she puts some humanity into Nolan, and in turn puts some humanity into Mark, and that's what the story, and that's why like Nolan's eventual, you know, redemption arc comes, and she's really the MVP about, like, the unsung MVP. Like, without her, it would have been a normal takeover, right? But we see these really great moments in season 1 with Nolan that really just set up the twist, right? Because, okay, so he kills the Guardians of the Globe at the beginning, but then you really don't get why he did it until obviously the end. You find out he's from Viltrum, and you know, it's a species that come and they take over planets and stuff. But there's like so many good like setups for that. Like when he's attacking this alien planet, he says Earth isn't yours to conquer, and that was really interesting because at first you're just like, yeah, of course it's not. No one can conquer Earth. But then after you see the finale, you just say, oh shit, he means like it's for Viltrum and me to take over. And then you get one of like the most tense scenes looking back at it is when Mark gets his powers, and it's actually a meme going around right now. But it's when Mark gets his powers, and when Mark says, "Yeah, I got my powers. I threw a trash bag," and then it cuts to Nolan deadpan, and he says, "Are you sure?" Deadpan, and Debbie has to kick him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you."
Guess who's finally getting his powers?
Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
And that is just so hard hitting because Nolan, and I'm pretty sure he says in the comics, like those 17 years he was with Mark, and he was low key hoping Mark didn't get powers, so because he loved Debbie that much. And as you know, Viltrums can live thousands of years, or Viltrumites, but he low key hoped Mark didn't get powers, so then he could just live the life until they both die and then take over. But Mark got powers, and then obviously he had to enact on the Viltrum way. And my favorite scene in Invincible is actually in the finale of season 1, where he's beating the dog piss out of Mark, and it cuts to the scene where, because this show's all about the fragility of life as well, because we just see so many humans dying nonstop. I mean, the season 3 finale, we just saw so many humans just get slaughtered, and to Viltrumites, it's like a blink of an eye type thing, obviously, especially with humans, because they don't view humans as like equals. And so then seeing this scene of Debbie instilling this humanity into Nolan, where Mark's playing baseball, and Nolan's like, this is useless, and he's like, and she's like, it's not useless because look how happy it's making your son, and in turn that makes Nolan happy, and he cheers him on, and then it cuts to when he's beating Mark to a pulp.
This is humanity. Did you see that? Did you see? Oh, that was amazing!
Yeah, I saw.
But yeah, season 1 was peak. Season 2 was obviously peak as well. Season 3 is really strong. It is peak as well. The only downside, like I said, I really have about season 3 is the animation. If I had to pick like a bad thing, but other than that, I'm not even mad about the animation, like I said, because episodes 7 and 8, especially 8, has such good animation, and it's such peak. My whole table's shaking. I don't even care if I have to see the immortal fly away as a singular PNG, right? I don't care. So this whole season's basically about Mark really getting tested on not killing someone. As we saw in season 2, he kills Angstrom Levy at the end, at the end of season 2. And we know that's a toll on him because that's the first person he's killed. And it's basically him going back and forth with Cecil, because we find out that, and what's great about this show is like, you can see both sides really well. These characters are really fleshed out, right? Because on one hand, Mark is right. Like, stop, stalking my family. You put an inhibitor chip in me that makes me not be able to do anything without my consent. And all this other stuff. And obviously, like, they're, Sinclair's making Reanimen, and Mark's whole philosophy as of right now, as we know he is a teenager still, is no one can go from good to bad. And this stems from his PTSD with his father that he's still trying to overcome. And then Cecil makes a really good point, because Mark over here is talking about how he saw Nolan in season 2, and now he still loves Nolan, and he could see maybe there's redemption there, and Cecil's like, so you're just a hypocrite then, because you're saying that about your dad, but you can't say that about Darkwing or the Reanimen and all that. And so that's basically, they're like, there's a big rift in the beginning of the season, and we do have a sign towards the end. I think it was episode 7 or 6 where we see that the relationship's starting to mend a little bit, right? Because Cecil's like, we're still the good guys, and he always says how you can either be doing the right thing or you could save the world, and that's really his mentality. And so he tells Mark, if he ever needs to talk to someone, and Mark says, you're the last person I really want to talk to, but then he says thanks, and that just shows there's some room to grow here. I mean, there's a bunch of shit going on. I mean, shit, Invincible fights Powerplex, all the Invincible War that lasts 5 days, and then Conquest back to back to back. I mean, the world is really recovering from this, and Cecil and Mark. But then we have Cecil's side as well, where he's like, well, you can't blame me for thinking this way. You're acting out of pocket. You don't think anyone can heal. Then we see this really great backstory of Cecil and where he comes from, because he was a guy who went through this, right? And he's basically seen these like the people who almost killed him were actually saving the day, and then he killed him and he went to prison for it and blah blah blah. So we see like his backstory, and it makes sense. I mean, Nolan was the same thing. Nolan came to Earth, and we actually find out in this season, which I love, that Cecil was on to Nolan from the get-go. I always thought it was weird how, like, Cecil, like, doesn't really trust anyone or anything, and he was cool with Nolan, and he was so sidetracked by Nolan. But then we see in this season, the minute Nolan came to Earth, he was like, yeah, we need to track that guy. So it makes sense because Nolan turned evil. And yes, like, Mark is better than Nolan and all that. And yes, Cecil respects Mark. But, you know, still you have to have these precautions. No character is off of turning to evil in Cecil's mind. And, you know, it's one of those things where, like he said, you have to have a real big discipline to be in this role. So then obviously that happens. And then we get the return of Angstrom Levy, where I don't know how the fuck he survived. I mean, he is mangled and he survives. He basically gets all these alternate marks to attack the world, Mark's in our Mark's world, and it basically lasts a few days, and that episode was phenomenal. And we see all these different Invincibles. And one thing I really like, especially what they're starting to do in season 3, is they're doing a lot of stuff different from the comics, where even at the end of season 3, they set up this demon storyline that wasn't even in the comics. Like, remember Damien or something his name was? He was like the demon from season 1. In the comics, you never see him again. And now it was a scrap storyline in the comics. Now they're doing it in the show. Just little things like the random Invincibles they bring from other dimensions. In the comics, they're just straight up evil. And in this, like, you do see some humanity still left in them. You see one of the Invincibles talking about, you know, they miss their mom, and the only reason they're doing this is because they were promised they were able to take a Debbie back to their realm, and some of them hate that they're doing. Obviously, there's some that are really bad, like the dude who, like, one of them who makes fun of the guy for missing his mom, and then we get the other Mark who's confirmed yay by the show, one of the showrunners, and he says, I miss William, insinuating that him and William were in a relationship, and, you know, he just misses William. And a lot of these Marks obviously have gone through different things. Now, obviously, some of those Marks are really evil, but... And then we see Oliver in this season, who is Nolan's kid with a Thraxon, as you know from season 2, and Thraxons die really quickly, so the lead Thraxon, the mother wanted Mark to take him back home, because she knows that Debbie can instill the good in him that she did to Mark and even Nolan. And I love Oliver. Obviously everyone's like, oh, he's a little annoying. I mean, he's a kid. I agree with him. I've always agreed with the fact that if you keep having these threats, kill them. I mean, like, Batman has a great philosophy on that, you know, where, and like I said, I know there's second chances, so obviously not everyone, but some big threats like Conquest or Angstrom Levy, kill them and finish the fight. Because look, Mark didn't kill Angstrom Levy, even though he meant to and he thought he did in that moment. He didn't kill Angstrom Levy. Angstrom Levy comes back and levels all these cities and millions of people die, right? And Oliver is of that nature where, you know, just kill them and end it. He kills the Mahler twins. And that was a big moment because the Mahler twins have been the twins that we keep seeing throughout the first 3 seasons. Like, they always come back, right? And so Oliver killing them was just a sentiment as to, like, finally just end it. Because look how much they always come back, right? And it's up to Mark to pick and choose, you know, who he does that with. Or, you know, like Darkwing, he'll let, you know, turn good or whatever. And you know, Cecil's point gets proven too, because Darkwing... They're having that same thing where, you know, he recruited the Dark... I know he's not actually Darkwing. It's like Darkwing 2. I'm just calling him Darkwing. You know, because Darkwing was evil a little bit, and then he brought him back, and then in the Invincible War, he literally takes the other Invincible into the Shadow Realm. We haven't seen him yet. So, I just really love the philosophies and how people act on them. They feel really human and really grounded. And obviously you get Debbie, who's one of the strongest characters in this story, which is funny because she's a normal human, but just her, like, willpower and her... And, like, just what she instills into Mark and stuff. Like, no one really talks about how important that she is. Because she's instilling all this good. I mean, think about it. Viltrumites lived for thousands of years. And she instilled something into Nolan in only 18 years. 19 years, 20 years max, right? That's like a blip in his radar. That's like, for us, like 5 years. Not even. And it just goes to show, like, how good-hearted she is. And all the characters in the show are peak. I mean, Rexplode has one of the best character arcs in this season alone. I mean, he started off as a douchey jerk. It's kind of like a Steve Harrington from Stranger Things situation. Adam Eve is great. We finally get Adam Eve and Mark together. And I really liked how they show a healthy ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend. Because they could have easily done the Amber and Mark are weird to each other. But, you know, like Mark's... And they kind of tease that by Mark being really scared to approach her, and then she just doesn't care. She hugs him, she says hi, and then they introduce the new boyfriend. They just start talking about comics. Like, I really like that I like when shows nowadays just skip a lot of the tropes we expect. But let's talk about the fights. I mean, the fights in this show are incredible, especially this season. Like I said, all season we've been building up to Conquest. Comic readers like myself know that Conquest fight is probably one of the best fights in comic, let alone Invincible. And we didn't know if we were going to get it this season. We didn't know if they were going to make us wait till season 4, but I'm so glad they didn't. A lot of people were complaining that the whole Invincible war was only one episode, but in the comic it's only one issue. And I like that because, especially now with Marvel doing multiverse, we really didn't need this whole season of multiverse stuff, right? I'm glad they kept it to one episode, and they do this, I think Kirkman wrote the comic this way because, yes, they do this, it's cool to see him fighting other Invincibles, but then you're just sideswiped by Conquest. I mean, he comes out of nowhere. This is probably the worst time in the 3 seasons that Conquest could have came. And a lot of people like IGN's review was terrible for this episode, where it's talking about how he comes out of nowhere. He doesn't. Anissa in season 2, after she fights Mark, says, someone else is going to be coming if you don't do your job and you don't get Earth ready. And he came. That fight, the fight was incredible. I mean, Mark's been cleaning up after fighting the Viltrumites, and he just comes out of nowhere and really tests Mark and fucks with Mark, almost kills Eve, kills thousands of people. It looked like Hawaii they were in, and Mark finally lets go and kills Conquest. Now, spoilers for the comics, because I know spoilers for the shows is different than the comics, because some of y'all have seen the show but not read the comics, so spoiler warning. Okay, so in the comics, as you know, as you saw at the end of the finale, Cecil keeps Conquest, and so obviously that's going to have some ramifications in the future, but that is like the one thing I think is stupid about Cecil. Moist Critical actually talked about this, and I agree, because like he talks about how Cecil's one of the best characters in the show, and I just don't like how like the fact that he's keeping Conquest like this isn't the bad thing in the situation. It's that he's just keeping him in there and acting like, oh, there's like 6 tons of steel. Like, it's weird because he didn't even put the implant in Conquest, right? Now, maybe they could change that in the future of the show where he actually did put an implant, but it doesn't work. Like Moist Critical says, like, at least if you do that, then it shows that, he did have a thing, it just didn't work. Because in the comics, it just came out of left field. There's some things from the comics that are coming up that I really hope they don't do. Like I said, comic spoilers for a second. Like Mark gets sucked into this dimension for 5 years, and it was cool. Then he comes back and he finds out that his kid's all grown up, and he finds out that Eve cheated on him, but they're not together anymore. And I never really liked that. I don't think Eve's the type to cheat, and I feel like you can do a 5-year time skip differently, but it's so important to the story. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm really excited where season 4 is, especially since we have this new of the devil character story arc, because now comic readers and everyone doesn't know where it's gonna go, because this was a scrap storyline from the comics, so we don't know where it's gonna go or how it's gonna end or how it's gonna tie into anything. And it's interesting because on one hand I'm really excited for it, on the other hand I kind of just wish we'd get to the Viltrumite War, because we're really close to Thrag now, and that's like the Thanos of Invincible, Thrag, and I really want to see him. So if I had to guess, we'll see him at the end of season 4. And as you know, they're going to be doing yearly, so we still have a few seasons left, so a few years of Invincible. But yeah, Invincible's kick-ass, guys. Girls, if you're watching, probably like 1% of you are girls, but girls, if you're watching and your boyfriend suggests shit all the time and they suggested Invincible, go watch it. I know it looks like a cartoon, but the story is really good. The voice acting, especially from Steven Yeun and J.K. Simmons and Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Conquest, and the voice acting and the woman who plays Debbie, phenomenal. And they really make these characters feel real. Yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. As always, it's been Big Art Reviews. We're going to have some big videos coming up soon. I'll see you in the next one. See ya.